This is gonna be the top 10 stoner rock albums of all time. Let's do it! You'll see some really influential albums here and artists. Number 10, Boris, Heavy Rocks. Heavy Rocks is from Japanese rock band Boris. The album was originally released in 2002 and was later reissued in 2011 with new artwork and a slightly different track listing. So the album leads off with Heavy Friends. So in this track you're gonna get some really grinding guitars and powerful droning kind of Melvin style riffs. And honestly, for a three-piece, they really drive an aggressive heavy sound. So some people say this album is heavier than a black hole. And the guitar player Wata, she can really lay it down, and there's some really great heavy doom style stoner riffs, and you can definitely tell there's a little bit of a Melvins influence here. And I believe the name Boris is from a Melvins track. Number 10, Boris, Heavy Rocks. At number 9, Sleep with Dope Smoker. This was originally recorded in 1996, but didn't come out till 2003 due to some label issues. The title track here is Dope Smoker, which is 63 minutes long. So it's only one song for over an hour and has various movements. It kind of has this heavy hypnotic droning doom vibe happening. So this is really unusual because nobody's really playing one song for an hour. And what I'd like to know is, how do they replicate that? Like, how do you remember all the parts? How would you remember, let's see, at minute 37, the drums are going to do this and the guitar. And interestingly enough, in 63 minutes, there's only 3 guitar solos. So that tells you a lot of it is riffing, droning, heavy vocals. And a little interesting factoid here is that Matt Pike of Sleep went on to form High on Fire. And High on Fire is probably a lot more well known than the underground Sleep release Dope Smoker. However, number 9, Sleep with Dope Smoker. At number 8, Melvins, Bullhead. This release is from 1991 and comes in at about 35 minutes, and there's 8 tracks. So the first track, Boris, which there's a band on this list called Boris. I guess that's where they got their name, a Melvins track. Look at that, hey, amazing. And the lineup here is Buzz Osborne on guitar and vocal, Dale Crover on drums, and Lori Black, aka Lorax, on bass, who is actually the daughter of Shirley Temple. Crazy. That's a crazy stat. So what's good about this album is you kind of get that kind of heavy Melvin sludge doom kind of vibe, but you also, there's definitely a more visceral kind of punk edge to Melvins more than some other bands on the list. It's Shoved is a really great track, and also Zodiac is a really great track. And Zodiac has a really driving beat to it, really heavy guitars. Number 8, Melvins, Bullhead. At number 7, Masters of Reality with Masters of Reality. And we've got 11 tracks here, and I think one of the standout tracks has to be number 2, Domino. That riff is really driving and great. You know, the drums here are actually kind of underrated. Now you might be thinking, this album is a little bit more bluesy than stoner. If you listen to the vocals and the way Chris Goss sings, some of the albums that come later on this list probably were influenced by the way that he's singing and some of the guitar playing. I'd have to say that's probably true. Looking to Get Right, that's another good song. John Brown. The Eyes of Texas, that's more of kind of a slow boogie blues jam. So I think this album really is unique because it has different flavors of rock, a little bit of blues in there, kind of that heaviness, a little stoner if you want to call it that. So it's really unique. You know, I remember this, hearing this album in high school, and we just played, it was cassette back then, and just wore the tape out. And a little factoid here is that I actually met Chris Goss at a party in the desert when Kyuss was playing in a backyard in the desert, that famous desert rock party scene. And what I remember was he was just a really genuine guy, really friendly. I mean, I was just this punk kid of, who was I, some kid. And some say he's the godfather of the desert rock scene out in the Coachella Valley. I don't know if that's true or not. At number 7, Masters of Reality with Masters of Reality. Number 6, Fu Manchu, The Action Is Go. Okay, this was put out in 1997, and actually Jay Younger from White Zombie was the producer. Hey, that's pretty cool. So this leads off with Evil Eye, and so one of the things about this record is Bob Balch can really play some lead guitar, and there's a lot of wah And you know, there's a lot of drop D tuning, and I think the thing about Fu Manchu is, especially with this record, but there's a little bit of punk influence there definitely, because the tempo which they play sometimes is a little bit faster than say, you know, this kind of sleep, kind of doom style. So Scott Hill and the boys really do a good job here. This kind of Southern California, fun, rock, stoner, have a good time. You're in the van, you're skateboarding or whatever you're doing, party. You know, it's really, really, really cool vibe. And the drummer for this one is Brant Bjork from Kyuss, and obviously his own solo stuff. So you can see a running theme through a lot of these bands is a lot of this cross-pollination with these people kind of moving in different bands. And I actually saw Fu Manchu in San Francisco on this tour. You know what you're gonna get, but they're gonna deliver over and over and over and just bludgeon you with riff after riff after riff. You know, you go to a Fu Manchu show and after, you know, 90 minutes, you're like, I don't even know how many more riffs I could hear. And this album has 14 tracks. Burning Road, that's another one. Laser Blast, that's got some really great riffs on. Saturn 3, and then the closer, Nothing Done. So at number 6, Fu Manchu, The Action Is Go. At number 5, Brant Bjork with Halamanta. Okay, this release came out in 1999 on Man's Ruin, and was re-released in 2003, and then a vinyl-only release was done in 2009. This release has 13 tracks, and track number 7, Toot, actually has lyrics written by Mario Lalli of Fatso Jetson, who some say might be the grandfather of the desert rock scene out in the Coachella Valley. So track 9, called Low Desert Punk, which actually, he kind of coined a new phrase, even a new kind of style that people are kind of talking about in the desert, which is, you know, everybody knows what punk is, but Low Desert, being Coachella Valley, has its own brand of punk, and this might fit within that category. And what's cool about this record is it's a little bit different style than what you would think of as the typical stoner, kind of that doom heavy vibe. This is a much more laid back, groove orientated sound, which I think his voice to me sounds like a cross between Phil Lynott of Thin Lizzy and maybe a little bit of Jimi Hendrix, kind of this more laid back style, vocal style. And then on this release, he played all the instruments, guitar, bass, and drums, everything. Automatic Fantastic, that's a really great song. So I think, you know, if you're looking for something that's a little more slowed down, groove, this is definitely a really good release, but I think it really fits within this kind of stoner, you know, universe, right? There's not just one sound, there's various different styles, which I think makes it more interesting. Number 5, Brant Bjork's Halamanta. At number 4, Monster Magnet, Dopes to Infinity. Dave Windorf out of New Jersey has his own brand of kind of stoner rock and vibes, and while it definitely fits within the universe, there's definitely some unique things about Monster Magnet. You know, there's a lot of heavy jams, not as slowed down sometimes as maybe the Melvins or Sleep. And what Windorf proved was there's a market for this type of music because, thanks in part probably a little bit to MTV back then when they played music videos, Negasonic Teenage Warhead was a hit. And then it was amazing. People would say, well, this heavy music actually reaches a larger audience. So I think what Monster Magnet does really effectively here is lots of heavy guitar work, really good rhythm section with the drums and the bass, and at the same time, it's not all just underground kind of drone heavy doom, long riffs. You know, there's that, but there's also some more accessible music. So I think what they did was they kind of combined that kind of underground, doom, slow, heavy stuff, and then also with a little bit of rock, I don't want to say pop, but more, you know, maybe a little more accessible tracks too. And so this release comes in with 12 tracks at about a little over an hour. So you're definitely getting some longer songs. There's also some songs in the 4-minute range. You know, one of the best ones on here, King of Mars, theme from Master Burner. So yeah, I think Monster Magnet really hit it out of the park with this one. At number 4, Monster Magnet, Dopes to Infinity. At number 3, Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf, put out in 2002. The truth of this release is that this is an all-star lineup right here. Josh Homme, everybody knows who that is, from Kyuss. You know, he started to really put his stamp on things from a songwriting perspective. And what's unique about this record is there's a lot of really solid kind of mid-tempo rockers that are just hits. They just are. They're While they're not pop, they're definitely radio friendly. I remember hearing some of these songs on the radio. I was like, wow, that's amazing. You know, you probably weren't going to hear very many kyuss songs on the radio. So I think what he did, which was smart, was kind of take some of that heaviness, take a little bit of the edge off, and kind of make it a little more accessible, and then it just exploded. And so you have Dave Grohl on drums. We don't need to talk any more about that. Everybody knows who that is. Nick Oliveri from kyuss on bass, who does some singing as well. Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees. So that gives you 3 vocalists, which is very unique, kind of, and on their own, independently, you know, they have different styles. Bringing that all together was such a great idea, I think. Gives it really some versatility and some unique sounds, having those, you know, Lanigan's more husky, kind of baritone voice. Oliveri with his kind of punk, you know, screaming and wildness. And then Josh Homme with a more kind of falsetto, I think, voice. And then Elaine Johannes is also on this record as well. So almost really like putting together an all-star band. And what you have is an amazing record. Go with the Flow, No One Knows, Hanging Tree, the list goes on and on. This really blew the doors off. What a great record. Amazing. Queens of the Stone Age, number 3, Songs for the Deaf. Okay, at number 2, kyuss, Blues for the Red Sun. You knew it was coming. It had to be on this list, of course. So this came out in 1992, and little factoid here is that's 1 year after 2 of the members actually graduated from high school, Josh and Brant. So imagine putting this out right in the time you're in high school or right after. Wow. There's a lot of talent here in this band, obviously. And I think one of the things that people shouldn't sleep on is the fact that John Garcia can really blow the doors off vocally. The guy can really sing. And that's, I think, one of the unique things about this record is, you know, obviously everyone is really focused on the riffs and the heaviness and the drop C tunings, and you know, the drumming is really great and all the bass lines, but the vocals really kind of, to me, set it apart in this kind of stoner universe than maybe some of the other releases of the time. And as far as being influential, you know, this is one of the most influential records of the genre because it kind of coined a term, you know, desert rock, stoner rock. Those are maybe interchangeable, but without this, a lot of things that came after wouldn't exist. Allen's Wrench, Freedom Run, that's a great song. Mondo Generator, which actually turned into be a Nick Oliveri project in the future. Molten Universe, Green Machine, that's, you know, so there's a lot of really good songs on here. And so growing up in the desert and being around this music and actually seeing these guys play these songs in the dirt, in the dust, you know, at these desert generator parties, it was something else. Obviously, when you were there, you knew how good it was. Did anybody know how influential it would ultimately be? I don't know. I don't think I did. But you could tell there was definitely a lot of talent in this group, and just the heaviness and just that kind of driving sound, you know, whether it's the drums and the bass working together or, you know, layering Garcia's vocals over it. You know, Josh has some really heavy riffs here, and with the tunings, it really just, it's a unique sound. And I think that's why it's kind of stood the test of time, really. At number 2, kyuss, Blues for the Red Sun. And at number 1, Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. So this came out in July of 1971 and actually reached number 8 on the US charts, which is amazing for such a heavy record. When you think of the music at the time, I'm not sure that there was something as heavy as this. You know, Tony Iommi really took it to the next level here with, you know, these drop C tunings. I don't think a lot of people were doing that at the time. Into the Void, that's one of my favorite all-time tracks actually by Black Sabbath. Really great, really solid. Sweet Leaf, which we probably know what that song is about, so you can really tell this is the genesis, in my opinion, of where this heavy kind of stonery universe of music started, because the tunings start here, the drums, the bass, how those interact with each other. Children of the Grave, that's a really great song. Hard to put this anywhere else. Maybe number 2, maybe you flip this with Kyuss, Blues of the Red Sun, maybe? I could see someone making that case, but this has to be in the top 2 in my opinion. Geezer Butler, first-rate bass playing all the way through, lots of really great bass lines. So the thing about Sabbath, which maybe is a little different than some other bands, is the bass is really prominent here, and it proved that the bass can kind of be a star with the guitar, in my opinion, with some of these really great bass lines. And Bill Ward is a really good drummer here, no complaints there, awesome. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the Bat Eater himself, Ozzy Osbourne. So if you combine all those things, it's really amazing and a super group of epic proportions. Number 1, Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. So if you have a comment about the list, go ahead and put it in. Let's see what people have to say. So this has been Damon D, One World, One Rock.